So, good afternoon to all of you. I hope maximum of you are there.
Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon, sir.
Yeah. So let's take a start. Today we have to go on with the last skill, which is speaking. All right. Speaking. Unit 8. What is speaking? Speaking is one of the 4 language skills: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Speaking and writing are productive skills. The other 2 are receptive, which is listening and reading. And the difference between productive and receptive, it might be very clear to you now. Productive, which goes from our side, the information to the next person. And receptive is when the information comes to us. That means that unlike listening and reading, they involve producing language rather than receiving it. Very simply, we can say that speaking involves using speech to communicate meanings to other people. In this unit, we will look how we do that. Now, here you see, there are key concepts. So we are going to check. They say, tick the things on the list. You see here, it is on this list. We say in this list. So you have to be, it can be used both. Sometimes they are confused with that in and on. This list, which we often do when we speak, right? So you just have to tick mark the one which we often do while speaking. Pronounced words. Answer, you can tick mark if you think it is done during the speaking. And the one which is not, you can leave it. Answer questions, use intonation, ask for clarification or explanation, monitor and correct ourselves, take part in discussions, use an appropriate register, take part in conversations, greet people, plan what we will say, smile, ask for and give information, use grammar and vocabulary, use words and sentence stress, start speaking when someone else stops, tell stories, use language accurately, paraphrase, mean find other ways of saying things. 19, interrupt other speakers. 20, hesitate. So did you find anything which we don't do while we are speaking? Rovidi? Lakmini? If you see, almost all these things we do when we speak, right? Yeah. When we speak, we usually do all these things. Down it is mentioned, except we don't usually plan what we will say. When we talk, except some special occasions, we don't plan. We just respond. So, nor do we use language completely accurately. And when we speak, we do not use accurate language. That's why sometimes people take it wrong way that we do not need grammar while we are speaking. But that there are some different other reasons involved in it. And what are the things why we speak not accurately when we speak? We say one word, some phrase, half a sentence, or some kind of muddle up things we say. Reason behind is, you will find it after a while, that we use a lot of other things also when we speak. Our body language is involved in it. Facial expressions are involved in it. Situation is involved in it. The relation between the speaker and listener is involved in it. And what they are talking, the knowledge of it. So when all these things are involved, we'll use less words. That's why if you see, when we talk to each other, the known people, so we know background, our relationship with each other, and the thing we are talking. So our conversation is very short. But if another person is listening to that conversation, they may not get the whole idea what we are talking about. You know, why? Because that person is not aware of the situation. That person is not aware of the relationship these two, listener and speaker, which they have with each other. And that person, if he can see or she can see the body language, somewhat they will get the idea. But if they cannot see the body language and only listening to that dialogues, then it will be difficult to figure it out. So when we speak, speaking does not involve one thing. There are a lot of things involved in it. And that's what we are going to talk about. That's why we do not use accurate language when we speak, because other things are there also to take part in the communication. Sometimes we don't utter a word and the communication is done that what this person's answer is. All right. So that's why they say here, nor do we use language completely accurately. For example, use correct form of grammar or vocabulary. As we saw in Unit 7, listening, pressure of time does not allow us to do these things when speaking. Unless we make prepared speeches or presentations. Now, whenever it is like I said a while ago, that accept some situation, those are these situations when there is a presentation, there is a speech, so you prepare for that. Other than that, in the social life, normally when we talk to each other, we do not prepare the things, we just respond to the things spontaneously. You can see from this list that speaking involves several sub-skills. Now that's the examination point of view, sub-skills of the speaking, what they are. Comparatively, speaking involves a lot of sub-skills comparatively with the other skills like listening, reading, and writing. Here we see, number one, making use of grammar, vocabulary, and function. So all these three things are involved. That is one thing. Second, making use of register to speak appropriately. What kind of word need to be used? It should be used in the neutral way, informal way, or formal way. So appropriateness of the language is involved in it. Next is using feature of connected speech. Connected speech we described before also. Now also it will come. Connected speech is the connectivity of the words and the sentences, like now I'm speaking, and the sounds of it, the pace of it, all these things are involved in the connected speech. Using body language. Now, this is what I talk to you. Speaking body language is also part of it. Producing different text types. We speak for the different ways, for different reasons. Oral fluency. What's that? Speaking at a normal speed with little hesitation, repetition, or self-correction. And with smooth use of connected speech. So when we are fluent means we are less hesitate. We have less repetition or self-correction. I hope you understand all these hesitation, repetition, and self-correction. Next is using interactive strategies. Interactive strategies are what? Ways of keeping people interested and involved in what we are saying. You might have seen in your practical life that there might be some of your friends, you like to talk to them, and the people also like to listen to them. Why? Because their way of speaking is such that they keep the other people interested in listening to them. But some are there that hardly somebody will bear their way of speaking. Why? Because there are so many repetition of the same story in different ways, or for a small thing, they will be explaining a lot, or they cannot concisely speak to the point, or they cannot make any relevance in their speaking to the events. Okay, so you got to be figuring out what the person is talking about, and that person is repeating, that person is hesitating, self-correction is there, all fluency is not there. So with those kind of people, it's difficult to talk. But opposite to that, the one who are unlike this, people like to listen to them. And that's why you see different presenters and anchors. They are famous on the TV, in the media, and they keep the people involved, and the people like to listen to them. They also speak the same language. They also speak about the same topic, but their collection of words and selection of the words and the phrases and the thing they presented and the pace of speaking and the emotional attachment in that and the intonation of it accordingly, that's such an attractive way that people like to listen to them. Okay, so that is called interactive strategies. And as a teacher, we need to have interactive strategies, different time we need to express ourselves in a different ways, in different moods. Sometime in serious mood, sometime in funny mood, sometime is in surprising mood, sometime in worrying mood. All these things are part of the teaching. The teacher should not be like a robot giving the instructions or explaining the thing like a robot is explaining. No, you are facing the student. They are reading your body language and your facial expression, and it has an impact on your teaching style. So you have to find out this particular thing we are going to discuss in the next unit. The teaching style comes and all these expression, what you're supposed to do as a teacher in the classroom, right? So in detail, we will go and discuss that in the next topic, most probably next week. So far, it is the thing which is we are called it interactive strategies. So are these things clear to you so far, the few points which we discussed? Lakmini?
Yes, sir. Clear.
Right. All of you, please give me thumbs if it is clear. Vatsala, Suraji, Bruvidi. Yes, fine. So let's go ahead and see what comes in the next one. Our purpose in speaking is to communicate meaning, and we do all these things to achieve this. The utmost goal of the speaking is what? Communication. And in the communication, what's the goal? The other person have understood us, what we want to say there. Okay, so that's what is speaking for communication, communication to make yourself understood by others. That is the goal. We can see that speaking involves a lot of more than just using grammar and vocabulary accurately in speech. That's how we describe the whole things here now. You can see speaking is much more than only using grammar, vocabulary properly, accurate way. More than that, a lot of other things are involved in the speaking. Okay, when we speak, we constantly have in mind that the person we are speaking to, or our wish to communicate our meaning successfully. That the person we are speaking to, that I told you a while ago, that the utmost purpose is communication and making the other person understand what we are talking to them. So next is right. We use interactive strategies to help us achieve this. Now, when we want to communicate with some, we speak for communication to make ourselves understood by others. Now, to do that, we use interactive strategies. We talk about that a bit. Now we will a little bit take some example of it. These includes using body language such as gestures, eye contact, facial expression, and movement to put our message across more strongly and clearly. So we involve our gestures, eye contact, facial expressions, and movement up. We want to make it clear. So you see sometimes we with the eyes are going, eyebrows up, eyes wide open, and making faces like, surprising way, happy way, and all these things like, inquisitive way. All this we are making different gesture. Our body language will help us to communicate our message across, and the person can understand the intensity of it, what's the message is coming, and how they have to respond to it. Next is and functions such as clarifying. And now when we want to clarify ourselves, we are using the words also, like you say, I mean to say, or what I'm trying to say is, asking for opinion sometime when we want. So then we use the words like, what do you think? Or agreeing with something, yes, that's right. Okay, asking what is to keep the interaction going on and check that it's successful. So all these things, these phrases, different expressions we are using along with our body language in order to see whether the person has understood us, in order to see what their opinion is about what we are saying to them. So all these things are involved in the interactive strategies. Okay, and the purpose is what to communication interaction should go on, right? Turn taking, now that's another strategy which we use, is another interactive strategy we use. Turn taking, especially in the Cambridge English exam, as an examiner, when we check the candidate's speaking ability. So we check this thing whether their turn taking is, they are doing it properly or not. They know the manners of conversations, because two students come together in the main suite exams, not the low one. Low one, they do single student goes for the speaking test. But CAT and above, up to the advanced level, CPU level, the CP, professional level, there, two students, they go together. And it is checked by the examiners that how they do the conversation, how they give chance to each other, how they take turn, how they interrupt, how they ask opinion and suggestions. Okay, all these things are checked in the Cambridge speaking test. So that's what they say. Turn taking is another interactive strategy we use. It involves using intonation, language, or body language to show you want to join a conversation or end one. Keep speaking or invite other participants to join in. We use it to make sure we get our message across. Paraphrasing can also be thought of as an interactive strategy. Paraphrasing is another interactive strategy. What happens in that? We paraphrase when we judge our communication cannot be or has not been understood. We use other words to say the same thing in order to get our message across. So what is paraphrasing? When you talk to someone and the person cannot get what you're talking about, then at that time you change the words and you say the same thing in different words. That strategy is called paraphrasing. Okay, is that clear? So far we discussed interactive strategies. They are clear? Any question? Right. Hi Suraji, you came after a long time. I was just talking to them that what to do about your classes, as you can't manage it on weekdays and weekend. So good to see you.
Okay, sir.
If there is anything you missed the classes, let me know. If something is needed,
Okay, so I already have sent you a message. If you possible, you can that please send me those recordings.
All right.
The thing was, then my son also has this class same time. That's
Yeah.
why I couldn't participate for the lesson.
So no worries, we can adjust another time. You just go through that recording I can send, but not the whole recording we don't send. We send like by chance one recording is missed or 2 times, like sometime can be, but continuously all the recordings we don't send. But anyhow, I can help you out. You just let me know. Okay.
Okay, so thank
We
you.
will figure it out. What are the things needed to be done. Right, so the next one is speaking also involves making use of all the features of connected speech to convey our message. We use intonation as we talk about that, word and sentence stress, accurate individual sounds, linking and contractions to help convey our meaning. So these all parts are what of the connected speech we talk. So in the connected speech, what are the things? Intonation, up and down the thing goes, word and sentence stress, like how to stress it. This thing we will discuss in phonology, which I have not done with you yet. How words are stressed, how the sentence, in the sentence, which word need to be stressed. And that's the main thing, the difference between the native speaker and the second language speaker. When they talk, they do not stress all the things the same way. They stress particular things in the sentence, and that we will discuss in the phonology. Right. So you can note down these one. It's regarding the connected speech. These are the features of the connected speech that they have mentioned here. Next is fluency, accuracy, and appropriacy. I hope you can understand these terms now. What's fluency? We discussed on the previous page. Accuracy, we have discussed so many times in the other skills. Appropriacy, we discussed in the function. All right, here you go. Short introduction is there again for that. Also play fluency, accuracy, appropriacy. Also play a major part in successful oral communication. Fluency helps ensure that our listeners will make on listening to us without getting bored or irritated by too many hesitation or too slow pace of speaking. So fluency is must. Then the listener, they don't get bored with our hesitation and repetitions, you know. So when you are fluent in speaking, the listener easily can follow you up. Accuracy of grammar. Now, accuracy when come, it's always deal with the grammatical part of the language, how the language is properly grammatically used. Accuracy of grammar, use of vocabulary and production of sounds help keep our message clear. And appropriacy is another way of keeping our listener involved. We use the right register to treat our listener with appropriate degree of formality and informality in order not to upset them and make them feel uncomfortable. Like a situation where you're supposed to talk formal way and you are very casual, it's not going to work. If you are supposed to be relaxed and casual way talking, and there you become very formal, this thing we discuss in the function. We have discussed already that. So these accuracy, in which the use of the grammar, the pronunciation of the words, and those things, plus the appropriacy of the language, plus the fluency, these three things are very much involved in the speaking part. We need to be like, if you see now, how many things are involved in the speaking compared to the rest of that? There are a lot. And as we take the speaking practice in the classes, nobody bothers about these things. So they say speaking is easy, just give something and let them talk on it. So we will further also find out some more things also in it, what they are. Okay, let's see. Finally, as with other language skills, speaking also involves being able to deal with different text type. For example, taking part in conversations, that's one text type, discussions, or telephone calls, giving presentations, telling stories. All these text types have different features. Buying sweets in a shop, for example, involves different speaking skills from telling your friends about the exciting things that happen to you on the weekend, or presenting the result of a project work to classmates. So with all these different interaction, different text type, different language are involved in that. All these are not one way. They involve using different functions, different levels of formality, different amounts of speaking, different amounts of interaction, different structures and vocabulary. There are many aspects of speaking for a learner to learn. We can see that as with the language skills, speaking is a complex activity. In the end, bottom line is, speaking is not as easy as it seems to us. It's a very complex activity. A lot of features are there, sub-skills are there, or interactive strategies are there which are involved in it. Unfortunately, we don't know about that these things are. Why? Because it's not tested in our examination. Now here it is only for the Cambridge side when you're going to do the test or the professional test, proficiency test, which you do like IELTS, all these. There they check this, but commonly it is not checked in the school. That's why it is not given much importance. Right. So is that clear so far? Any question? All right. Now we will go further. Key concept in language teaching classroom. Now, when it comes to speaking to the classroom, then what are the things involved in it? In this key concept in the classroom one, I have told before also, they tell you different methods. These methods not exactly to be suitable for your class, but at least if it's not 100% suitable, you can take the idea from it and see what are the changes or personalized things you can do with it by personalizing the method and adopting to your teaching style and according to the need of your students. Okay. So I'm not saying exactly what they say here, you have to adopt it, but examination point of view, you need to keep that in mind, that what they are saying, that what's supposed to be done in the class, because they will test you in it. So for the examination purpose, you have to keep, but practically for your teaching purpose, not necessarily exactly you can adopt the whole method. Speaking involves a range of different sub-skills. Learners can benefit from practice in each of these to develop their speaking. We can help our learners get this practice by focusing regularly on particular aspect of speaking, like what? Fluency, pronunciation, register, grammatical accuracy, body language, interactive strategies, interactive speaking, mean conversation and discussions, speak at length, like presentations, giving point of view. So when we want to have the speaking practice with our learners, we need to do all these things which they have mentioned here. We discussed that before also. So it's not just to start speaking on a topic. There are different ways you are preparing them for what? If it's a presentation, it's a different kind of language they need to adopt. You know, what kind of filler they are using, what kind of starters they are using in that, how they start the conversation, how they go from one point to another point, what's the linker they have to use it. So a lot of things are used in it. Why? Because like presentation is definitely a different kind of formal language they need to use in that. Speech is different way, plus conversations and debates different way. Likewise, fluency, pronunciation practices which it is done in a different way. So all these things are involved in the speaking, and when we want to have the speaking practice, these are the things, activities we can do based on these sub-skills. Right, the next one is in many classrooms, control practice activities. What are they? You may be doing that, but you don't know what is it called, control practice, what we call it too. Anyone knows control practice activities? You might be doing that. Like you see here, activities in which learners are required to repeatedly use the language that they have just been taught. Now, they have not specifically told us, make up a large part of speaking practice. Okay, these activities includes drills. So you are doing drills in the classes, repetitions, and saying things learned by heart. These things you are doing, and these are called control practice activities. Control practice activities are where the learners have less choice of using the language by themselves. You make them bound to a particular part of the language, and that's the only language they have to use in those activities. They are bound to use particular language. They are not have much choice there, and that we call controlled practice activities. Later on in unit 17 and 16, we will be discussing it in detail. So far, just keep that in mind. On the next page also, we are explaining it a bit more. So I hope it will be clear to you. They focus on accuracy in speaking by helping students to use grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. Now, when we do control practice activities, they help control practice activity help what? It help in the grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. Let's see if it continues further. Vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation correctly. So we want to use these things correctly. We are doing control practice activity with them. Have you got clear? Is it clear to you, control practice activity? I think not.
Sir, may I know about drills?
Drills, yeah.
Yeah.
Drills are, there are individual drills, there are collective drills, there are choral drills. Okay, drills are the repetition of the words which you do, mostly for the pronunciation practices that is done. For the intonation and word stress, intense stresses you done. Teachers mostly read that, and the student they follow and they read after the teacher in the lower classes. Do you do that? Reading practice, we call it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that's what I was telling you. You people are doing these things, but you may not know the name, appropriate name. What is it called? We call it different way. We say reading practice, but actually it's a pronunciation practice, and it's the pronouncing the words and connected that. So it comes in that. Reading practice comes in a different way. That we discuss in the reading. So
Yeah.
back in the reading part, you have discussed the reading practice, how we do that. Okay. And that's why in sub-skill of reading, pronunciation, reading out, they have not included that over there. But commonly, we say it's reading practice. So then the teacher reads from the book, and the student, they follow it up. There are different varieties. If you go to the glossary, you will find the whole thing, and time to time it will come in. We will be detailed going into that. But at this time, you people need to know control practice activity and free and freer, what they are. These three things, okay? If you just make it clear in that, I will. There are some explanation coming ahead. Let's see, finish it in. After that, we are going to talk about it with how much you have understood. Yeah.
Okay,
So what we see further, control practice activities provide useful. Okay, no, here they can motivate learners by giving them confidence that what they are saying is right. Why? Because limited part of the language, more practice. So the children, the learners, they become confident in saying that particular part. That's the you know, what is the benefit of the control practice activities. In control practice activities, provide useful if limited preparation for speaking, as they do not give practice in fluency, interaction, and successfully communication message. Now, the control practice activity, it does not give you practice in fluency, interaction, or successful communicating a message. Communicating a message, fluency, it doesn't come in the control practice activity, okay? That's what you have to note it down. But what does it give? It gives you motivate learners, giving them confidence that what they are saying is right. So it provides you useful if limited preparation for speaking. Limited preparation for speaking, you are not getting much more practice about the fluency and interactive and successful communication. Is this clear? That you have to note it down with you, this point. Okay, control practice activity give you limited practice, not the fluency and interaction practice in becoming a fluent in the language. Is it clear? But if you see the next point, fluency activities allow learner to choose the language they use to speak. Now coming to the fluency side, they include tasks such as information gap activities, problem solving, project work, discussions, explaining solutions. All these tasks involve learners in communicating new information with one another. As they speak, learners need to try to get their message across to one another. These activities give learners the opportunity to practice communication, interaction, and fluency. So, in the first point, we discussed that control practice activities, or it is also called restricted activities. Okay, why? Because you are putting restriction on the student to use limited part of the language. So the fluency practice cannot be done in control practice activity, but you can build up the confidence in the student in that particular part of the language to practice it more and become more confident in speaking that. That benefit is there. But when it comes to the fluency activities, where we do like the activities are like information gap activities. There is some information is given, you have to fill it up, you know. Problem solving, you give some kind of problem to them and they have to find the solution and discuss and talk about it. Project work, they take a project and then they talk about it and finding the things and completing it. So they talk a lot about it. Discussions, you put a topic for discussion there, everyone gave their point of view. Explaining solutions, or you ask, okay, this is what we have to do, what's supposed to be done for that, everyone gave their own solution about it. So those kind of activities creates the the fluency practice for them. All right, now coming down to the third point, you just follow up the way it is coming, then in the end we will conclude all that and the difference between them, it will be clear. Pair and group work increase the opportunity for communication in the classroom, as more people speak than if just one learner is speaking to the teacher while the rest of the class listens. So when they say pair work or group work, it provides more opportunity for communication practices. So rather than if you talk to one student and that student is talking back to you about something you are talking to that, it's not giving them that much opportunity of building up their communication skills. Right. What's the next? In classes, they are not used to working in pair groups. The teacher may need to introduce these activities carefully. The bigger classes. In bigger classes and in the classes, they are not used to work in the pairs and the groups. The teacher may need to introduce these activities carefully to make sure learners see the point of them and make good use of them. Now, when you have bigger classes, so some of the schools, like they have 40 children in one class, so it's difficult to do pair and group activities, or these mass classes are there, more than that students are there in doing the English classes. In that, you have to be very carefully arranging, because it's difficult to manage that. So that you have to plan how to do that, maybe two or three different kind of activity given to do. You divide the class in the different groups, and every group is given different sort of activity. So likewise, you can manage with that. So this is what they talk about here. Then coming back to the control practice. In control practice activities, the teacher usually correct learners' accuracy. This is a point, note it down. The teachers does what? Whenever they are practicing control practice activity, teachers does the correction. If they are doing it wrong, they are using it wrong, they are speaking it wrong, they are pronouncing it wrong, so their grammatical wrongly saying grammar mistake is there. So the teacher does the correction in control practice activities. As accuracy is the purpose of these activities, because control practice activities purpose is accuracy. Its purpose is not fluency. So I hope that the point we discussed above at the time of which we were talking about fluency is not, it is limited practices done. Here they are concluding it very well. Control practice activities, the teacher usually correct learners' accuracy. Accuracy is dealing with the grammar, and that's what is the purpose of the control practice activity, to do the grammatical perfect. They should speak according to that. And we do this correction in while doing the control practice activities. Now, on the other hand, in fluency activities, it is advisable not to correct learners immediately. This is a point to be noted. Whenever the students are in the class doing the fluency practice, discussions are going on, problem solving activities are going on, they are talking to each other on different things, brainstorming is going on. Do not do the correction. Is this point clear to you?
Yes, sir.
In control practice activity, you are allowed to do the correction, because the purpose is grammatically perfect speaking. All right? But if the fluency practice you are doing, immediately you do not have to do the correction. This is the one, and the reason coming up, what the reason behind it is. In this way, learners are given the opportunity to focus on communicating their message. When you do not stop them and correct them, they are focusing on the message what they want to give to the others, and they communicate. They are focusing on the communication. But as you stop during the fluency activity and you do the correction, their focus is divided. Now they are thinking the teacher is nagging them, they had, okay, she's looking for the fault also, so we have to speak accurately also. Then the communication activity for the fluency purposes, it is effective. Why? Because now the learners are kind of cautious. So when they become cautious, at that time, when they are halfway to learning language, they do not have that much communication ability. It will affect their fluency practice. Why? Because by stopping and correcting them, you divided their mind in two ways. Is that clear? Right. So the next one is, in this way, learners are given the opportunity to focus on communicating their message. The teacher can note down mistakes and work on them with the class after the activity. If you have noted down while the fluency practice discussions, debates, these sort of thing was going on and they were practicing it, you note down what type of mistake they are doing. And once your activity is over, then you can explain it to them that while speaking, you have to avoid this mistake, this thing you have to pronounce in this way. but not during the activity. Okay, it's a point to be noted with you, and be clear about it. What type of activities you are doing for the accuracy practice, what type of activity you are doing for the fluency practice. Because speaking is such a complex skill, learners in the classroom may need a lot of help in preparing for speaking. For example, practice of necessary vocabulary, time to organize their ideas and what they want to say, practice in pronouncing new words and expressions, practice in carrying out a task before they speak freely. Or teachers may prefer to ask learners to carry out tasks and then focus on language problem afterwards. Some experts believe that focusing on language after rather before a task makes learners more interested in learning about the language, as it helps them see to the purpose of focusing on the language. Now, correction in this speaking activities mostly, if it is done after the task, it is more effective. If you do that during one, it will affect their speaking ability. They will be scared of speaking then. Before speaking, because it's a complex skill, it's a complex activity. Speaking is not an easy activity. They need to know what type of language words they have to use, vocabulary, what type of new expressions they have to use. Okay, how they have to organize the ideas, like how to connect that, linkers they have to use with that. From one idea you are going to the next idea. Okay, you are agreeing, you are disagreeing. Okay, you are giving the opinion, how you have to express it. They have to practice those, so they are focusing on it. Then pronunciation of the words comes, to pronounce it properly. They are focusing all these expressions, words, the things, the ideas. Okay, then if that time you are doing the correction, they will not be able to speak anything. So keep the correction thing after the activity. When it's done, do the correction, whatever the points you have noted about that. Okay, right. The next point is learners, especially beginners and children, may need time to take in and process all the new language they hear before they produce it in speaking. So beginner learners especially, they need to listen it before they speak. This for the small one. In some classrooms, especially primary ones, learners are allowed a silent period at the beginning of a course so that they have time to listen to and process the language first. Silent period is the time taken by the children mostly because the adults' cognitive skills are developed. Cognitive skills mean they can process the thoughts and produce it. So the children's cognitive skills are low. They take time to process the new language and then produce it. So that period which they take before producing the language, after listening it, so the period between listening and speaking, children supposed to take it more, and that is called silent period. Is this point clear to you? Silent period? All right. Okay, so you have to give that time to the children if they are taking. So first of all, they need to listen to that, and production will be a bit late. You have to give the time. Be patient with that. The activities in speaking lesson often follow this pattern. Now, when we do activities, how we do it? Number one, lead-in activity, an introduction to the topic of the lesson plus activity, including focus on the new language. Lead-in activities are those activities which you use something extra from the common life, or something you take it, you do an activity based on that which is related to the topic. That topic they are going to learn, but you do kind of activity which is in their experience, which is something they know about it, and they can relate it to the main topic as well. So it's an indication that this kind of activity is going to happen. Like, for example, a discussion is there about the birthday party. Okay, and you discuss about, okay, what are the things you like to buy for your birthday party arrangement? So they will give different ideas and all, everyone will give. The purpose of that is to make them ready that this is the topic we are going to discuss. And after that, arranging birthday party is the main topic to teach. So that is how you do that activity. After that, practice activities and tasks in which learners have opportunities to use the new language. This activity may move from control to freer activity, or teachers may choose to do them in the opposite order depending on the class and the learning context. Now here you try to understand when practice activities you are doing. So here you see they say control to freer activities. Okay, here you see control to freer activities. Now control we discuss. Control activities are where you bound your student that they have to use a particular language only. Okay, that is control practice. Freer is a little bit more open than the control one, where the students can use a bit more language by their own. I give you an example. Now, when you do, for example, you take an example of the control practice. You ask to do yes and no answer. Either it is yes or it is no, or true or false, or one word gap filling. These are control practice activities. Why? You have limited the use of language in that. They don't have choice of using that. Comparatively, if you ask them to write a letter to a friend and ask him to come in the summer vacation to your place for 2 weeks or 1 week, and then you find that you have to go to some particular places and all that. So you have to write to the friend, inviting him for the summer vacation and telling him that they have to go on a trip and all that. That is the thing they have given. But then you are free to use how to say these things. So you have the choice of using the language, but it is to be relevant to those points which they have asked you to do. Now, in this way, this is called freer, because comparatively to the control practice activity, you have some choice over here to use. Is this clear to you? Control and freer activity? Yeah.
Yes.
And in very much detail about it, we will talk in unit 17. Okay, it will be clear up with the examples over there. And there are sample lessons also in that, where a teacher is doing different lessons, and there we understand what type of methods are used and how they are doing it. So it will come over there. At the moment, you just try to this limited kind of definition of it, keep in mind. Next one. Okay, now sometime control practice activities is done before, sometime it is done after the freer activity. So it depends on the class. If you have a adults class, then you can do the freer activity first. Let them to do the freer activity and then come to the control practice. If you are having a class of the small one, then what you can do, you can first teach the language to them in control. They become competent of it. Then bring them to the freer one. Then now they are able to use that what they learn in a little bit freer environment. Okay, so this order teachers can change accordingly. Next, number 3 is post-task activity. When you finish the main activity, what you can do after that, activities in which learners do free speaking activities on the topic or work on the language used in the task. So what is the task you did there with the student? Now let them to discuss about it. Let them to give their own opinion about it, and a free discussion over there about it. So that's the further expressing, like, for example, you talk about the birthday. Now, okay, let's talk openly. What's your experience? What do you say? What happened? What we talk? Is it something matching with your own experience or not? So they talk, no, when I was doing my birthday, it was like this, we did this thing. So they may tell you similar kind of thing which you did in the main activity, or they may tell you different kind of that. So that will be after the task activity to be done. So these three types of activities we can do in the speaking. One before the main activity, second is main activity, and then after the activity is finished, post-task activity, what it is. Right. Is these three things clear to you? Activities in speaking lesson? Only Lakmini is clear? Okay, Ruvidi is also clear. Right. Reading, listening, and integrated skills. Lessons. Lesson combining use of several sub-skills. Integrated skill mean which is not one skill, different skills put together. Also give opportunities for speaking practice as learners focus on language before the text and discuss its topic. And then after that, after they have work on understanding the text, they can go on to do speaking activities related to its topic. Now, you know, for example, you did a reading activity. You can practice along with that. The writing activity, you can change it into the speaking practice. What they read about it, okay, let's have a discussion about it. So the speaking thing, okay, what you read about it, write your own ideas. So the writing practice going on in that way. Or you did a listening activity. So listening activity, after that, you say that, okay, write down what you heard there, or let's talk about it, what you heard, what you say about it. So they give their opinion. Speaking can be done after listening, writing can be done after listening, and that's we call integrated skills activity, where you involve multiple skills. Like the teachers who are teaching in primary, that is called, they are teaching integrated subjects. They don't teach one subject, they teach more than one subject, and that's why they call primary teaching is integrated teaching. Right. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
All right, so that's it. And where is it? So I hope, let me finish first of all the recording one, and then I talk to you about the